met ahead of session to kind of talk about this third grade retention law that was being proposed by the majority party. Many of our members in both of our respective caucuses are educators, and so we come with a wealth of experience, not only from the classroom, but also we have some principals and specialist teachers. I mean, it runs the gamut, counselors as well. And so we really kind of focused in on what we felt like were the non-negotiables in whatever they were going to pass for strong readers. And so I'm proud of the accomplishments that and the influence that we had on the legislation that passed this year. Obviously, retention leads to some very damaging long-term effects for many families and shows only minor growth that's not sustained past the 8th grade year if there aren't ongoing supports for those individuals. So our stance was no retention without early intervention. So what we were able to craft into the legislation was transitional first grade, transitional second grade. We tripled the amount of funding going into the strong readers formula, so tripling the amount of resources for our reading specialists, reading interventionists, and reading coaches, and really I'm highlighting the good parts because the bad part is that everyone who wanted this mandatory retention piece was trying to highlight Mississippi as the model for literacy. And in order to replicate what Mississippi did and has done, we would need to actually increase funding by like 100%. So it was a moderate first step, but the reality remains that we have a lot of inexperienced individuals in front of classrooms, and I think it's a disservice to the public to give a false sense of security about the individuals in the classrooms when we know that those teachers who are stepping into that role really need a lot of additional resources and support, both on the professional development side and definitely on the pedagogy and curriculum side. So we will continue to work on Oklahoma's commitment. It's our 8-year long-term strategic plan using real input from real teachers across the state. What an idea. And so I'm actually really excited to start up the conversations again this summer. We were able to put in some protections for English learners and also to protect some special education components. Now with the dissolution of the federal Department of Education, we wanted to ensure that our very vulnerable learners have those rights enshrined. So a little bit of good, a whole lot of work left to do, but you know, nobody's ever accused us of backing down from a fight, so I'm ready for it. Okay, so we are now ready for our public testimony portion. This is actually the whole purpose of tonight's event, so thank you for indulging us as we were able to give you some brief remarks about this last legislative session and what we intend to focus in on during the interim. And so the way that public testimony works is I've got the sign-up sheet up here with me. If you are moved by the other remarks that you hear from folks in the room, it's not closed, so feel free to venture back to the back, sign your name up, and we'll make sure that you get in the queue. Each speaker will have 2 minutes, and this is the wonderful, the lovely Elizabeth Sidler. She is the assistant to Leader Kurt. She will have these very wonderful signs that will tell you you have 30 seconds left and when to stop. And so if you'll please respect the time limits, that will make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. I also want to recognize that Anna Langthorne is here. She's our Chief of Staff in the Senate. And so I'm really grateful to all of the people, including Malia Bennett in the back, who helped make sure that this event runs smoothly and we have an opportunity for public testimony. So, are you guys ready? Okay, I'm ready because our very first speaker is the District Attorney for Oklahoma County, Vicki Bahena.
First of all, thank you all for doing this. I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the public. Thank you for being concerned about education, because what I am worried about is how everything that happens at the Capitol affects what I do in Oklahoma County, and that is the criminal justice system. So first off, and I know I've only got 2 minutes, so I'm going to throw a lot of stuff in here. Please, please, before you consider legislation involving the criminal justice system, please talk to a prosecutor about that legislation before you do it. I am happy to make myself available to answer any questions that you all have. And let me just give you a real quick example. The aggravated DUI bill that you all passed last year that took effect in November, as of November in 2025, I had 168 felony DUI cases that were filed in Oklahoma County for the first quarter. This year, because of the aggravated DUI, I have 623 felony DUI cases that have been filed in the first quarter of this year, and I got no appropriations. I got no lawyers to handle that. My lawyers are already handling general felony cases. Their caseload is about 320 cases a piece. And now I'm going to add another 623 cases to that volume. So please, please talk to a prosecutor. I understand what you're trying to do. I understand you're trying to keep Oklahomans safe. That I'm in the business of public safety. I just need, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding. Here's the other thing. I'm going to take somebody else's 2 minutes. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to step away from the mic and not have a report. Thank you. So here's the other thing I want to talk to you all about very quickly, and that is not only funding appropriate bills that you pass, but also consider the intervention programs that we have. 781 was a huge it was just a huge savior for those of us in the criminal justice system. 781 funds every one of our diversion courts in Oklahoma County. We know that people that graduate diversion programs, drug court, mental health court, remerge, all the other things, the recidivism rate is in the single digits. It changes not only that one person's life, but the trajectory of that entire family. I was telling one of the reps, Mark, earlier that either you can invest in money now and in intervention programs, or you pay for it later in DOC. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about real quick, I promise, is last year there was a Senate bill 1381 that was to finance a pilot project for a pretrial release program. Our state is under attack. I don't know how else to say it. Pretrial release, not just the U.S. Constitution, but Brill versus Gertch was an opinion by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals, told us that pretrial release is a constitutional guarantee. Remember, you're innocent until proven guilty, but we have never funded pretrial release. There was a federal case in the Tulsa County where a federal judge has recently decided that Tulsa County was in violation of constitutional rights of people that were in detention because they were not holding individualized detention hearings to determine whether that, so someone stays in detention, I'll be real quick, someone stays in detention if they're a danger to the community or they're a flight risk. Those are the only two reasons why we keep people in detention. But you have to have a hearing to determine whether or not that person is a danger or a flight risk. That requires prosecutors, that requires judges to fill that constitutional responsibility on behalf of the state. We are not doing it in Oklahoma County. Tulsa County has already been sued. Canadian County has been sued. Oklahoma County, I think, is on the agenda next. It goes back to my original theme. Either you pay for it now or you pay for it later, because there are judgments that are going to be against the state and the counties for not fulfilling and satisfying constitutional responsibilities. That is my, as quick as I could, program. I would love to talk to you more about it. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to explain any of these. Okay? Thank you.
All right, next we have Catherine, and I don't want to butcher your last name, but it's Cipriano. Wonderful. Catherine.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Cipriano. I'm from Edmond. Tonight, I'd like to share my husband's words. My name is Michael Cipriano. I was 15 years old when I was arrested, charged with first-degree murder, convicted, and sentenced to life without parole. Next week, I will turn 43 years old. I've spent almost 28 years in prison. 8 weeks before my arrest, at the end of ninth grade, my special education IEP showed I was functioning years below my peers. In some areas, I was performing at a second grade level. I had major cognitive and learning disabilities. In 2001, I lost my appeal by a 3-2 vote. One of the two dissenting judges wrote that I was emotionally and psychologically immature, learning disabled, functioning years below my peers, and should have remained in the juvenile system. He said, if this child does not meet the requirements for youthful offender status, no child ever will. And he ended his dissent with these words: sentencing him to life in prison is quite simply hideous and a travesty of justice. 25 years later, Oklahoma recognizes that children are different. We've changed how we sentence children. We changed how we understand child development, but somehow we're still fighting for the children who were left behind. During those 27 years, I have completed programs, earned certificates, and many self-improvement programs. I've mentored young inmates. I've never had gang affiliation. I have only 2 minor misconducts in nearly 3 decades, none since 2007. I have done everything the system claims it wants me to do. In 2019, my sentence was modified from life without parole to life with parole. Since then, I have come up for parole 3 times. Every denial has been for the same reason: A, denial based on the original crime. In other words, I am continually denied for the one thing that can never change. So my sentence changed, but the opportunity did not. The Supreme Court has made it clear that juveniles must be given meaningful opportunity for release based on demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation. After almost 28 years, I have demonstrated both. Yet I have never received a single yes vote. I have never advanced past stage 1. I have never had the opportunity to be heard. We are not asking Oklahoma to recognize something new. 25 years ago, a judge on Oklahoma's highest criminal court recognized that I was a child with major disabilities who belonged in the juvenile system, not sentenced to life in prison. The question is, what are we going to do about it now? We need parole reform that allows people to be evaluated for who they are today, not just who they were decades ago. We need second look laws that give people sentenced as children a real, meaningful opportunity for review. And we need to stop leaving yesterday's children behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Marvell McKenzie. You're the next contestant. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Sarah?
I'm Marvell McKenzie from Oklahoma County. I'm here to talk about also my husband. He's incarcerated from the age of 17. He's saying I'm short. From the age of 17 years old. He is now 50, will be 51 in July. No meaningful opportunity for parole whatsoever. He's gone up several times, 7 times exactly, and been denied. He got 2 yeses and 2 no's. That third person wasn't there to say yes or no, so it was automatically a no. He would appreciate the opportunity of meaningful parole. There's no options here for him or other juveniles. We say that we are number 1 in incarceration, number 50 in education. How about we educate so we don't have to incarcerate? That is very important. I'm so sad she left before I was able to talk because I had a whole lot to say and I got upset. But anyway, one thing to leave you with is a 14-year-old child has a sexual encounter with a 30-year-old. That is an inappropriate relationship. However, we're able to incarcerate 14, 15, 16-year-olds until they're 50. It's not appropriate in any fashion. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, if you came in late, I'm just reminding you there's still time if you feel moved and want to sign up. Next, we have Elisa Howell.
I'm Elisa with Organizing Okies. I just want to say thank you all, first of all. This year, the last 2 years have just been hell on earth here in Oklahoma. Y'all have definitely made it a little bit easier for us and have fought really hard, and we appreciate it. All of us do. So, I'll start with the prison reform one, just because, we have some of the worst prisons in the entire nation. There are people who are being murdered in our prisons and not being given the shots. And then looking and hearing the two people who spoke before me about children that are still incarcerated after all of these years. We know they're capable of learning. They just need the shots, and there's got to be something there that we can do to help them. And then the other thing that I came up here to talk about, the main thing I came to talk about, affordable housing. We have to have oversight for affordable housing. Right now, there's zero. Oklahoma Housing Finance Authority gives out the money, but nobody's accountable for a dime. How does that work? Oklahoma City has some of the worst housing units in anywhere. I mean, bad. It is so bad. And people are dying in these facilities that are supposed to be cared for. And we're talking elderly and disabled primarily, and I could name you 6 off the top of my head where I know on a regular basis there are people dropping dead, people who can't get any resources, can't get, property managers to do their job, and then when you ask somebody, oh, well, sorry, we can't do anything. The city can't do anything. The state can't do anything. The county can't do anything. These people are getting millions and millions and millions of taxpayer dollars, and there's no accountability. I would love it if we could talk about that some more and start getting some real relief and some real oversight there. So thank you.
Becky Duckworth. Here she is. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to speak. My name is Becky Duckworth, and I live in Edmond. I spent my career in property and casualty insurance, and today I'm speaking as both a former insurance professional and an Oklahoma consumer. Ellen, we can become good friends. I know insurance isn't the most exciting topic you'll hear about, but most people don't think much about it until your renewal notice shows up in the mailbox and they discover the premium has jumped again. That's happening to more and more Oklahoman families. We all understand that Oklahoma has tornadoes, hailstorms, high winds, and other risks that affect insurance costs. But when homeowners and drivers see their premium increase every single year or every 6 months, they deserve confidence that those increases have been thoroughly reviewed and justified. From my years in the industry, I know insurance companies need to be financially sound. We need them to pay our claims. They need to be able to pay when disaster strikes. This isn't about being anti-insurance. It's all about balance. Right now, Oklahomans feel like they have no voice in the process, and they really don't. They really don't. It's the insurance companies get away with anything they want. It's just mind-boggling. Other states do it so much better. But a lot of insurance companies love Oklahoma because they can get these exorbitant rates. So right now, Oklahomans feel like they have no voice. They wonder who's looking out for them. I believe Oklahoma should strengthen the insurance department by investing in additional actuarial and analytical expertise, so rate filings that insurance companies make receive careful, independent review that they deserve. And I know some people immediately say, oh, what about the funding? It's all about that. How can we afford that? My response is, how can we afford not to? If Oklahoma invests a few $1 million to strengthen oversight, but that effort saves consumers
hundreds of millions of dollars over the coming years. That's a tremendous return on investment. That's money that stays in the pockets of Oklahoma families trying to pay mortgages, groceries, gas, retirement, and support local businesses. As someone who worked in the industry, I'm not asking you to make it harder for insurance companies to do business here. It was a great career. I love my career in insurance. I'm asking you to make sure Oklahoma consumers have an equally strong advocate at the table. A healthy insurance market and strong consumer protections can and should exist together. Oklahomans work hard for their money. They deserve to know that when insurance companies ask for higher rates, those requests are being examined carefully, independently, and with the public interest in mind. Hopefully, we'll get the right insurance commissioner in place. I hope you'll consider giving our insurance department the resources that it needs to provide that level of oversight. Thank you for your time, your service, and your commitment to us Oklahomans.
All right, Margaret Larson. You yielded. If you have thoughts, feelings, ideas, and suggestions, come on down. And also just those shoes. I mean, that's worth it right there.
So, Marguerite Larson, I live in Norman, and there were a lot of things I was going through my head, but the head has stopped with the criminal justice system. And I think the biggest problem we have right now is people cannot afford bail. So what we have done is we have enslaved people. We have made it impossible for people to get out because it's legalized slavery. And until we fix the bail issue, I'm not really sure that the criminal justice department is going to be able to do what they really should be doing and helping people get out. The amount of money it would save the state if we were not housing them, maybe we could put affordable housing and get my homeless friends into a house instead of a tent. So anyway, I'll save the rest of that for tomorrow, city council. So that's it.
And I'm really looking forward to our next speaker because I love to hear from young people. So no offense to those of us. Yeah. Anyways, Caden Hill is here to speak.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Caden Hill. I'm a 16-year-old boy, and on October 4th, 2022, my life changed forever. That was the day I lost my mom to a fentanyl poisoning. She wasn't just a statistic. She was my mother, and her absence left a hole in my life that will never and can never will be filled. For a long time, it felt like the world just kept moving on normally, while my family was left picked apart by grief. But on May 29th, 2026, we saw a huge miracle happen. Governor Stitt signed Leo's Law into effect. This is more than just a piece of legislation. It's a huge milestone for Jacob Tao, Leo's dad, me, and for everyone who loved Leo and my mom. This is justice. It is proof that her life mattered and that her story has the power to save others from facing the same tragedy that I did. I want to say a massive heartfelt thank you to everyone here in the Capitol. Thank you for listening to our stories, for seeing our pain, and for choosing to act, and to everyone who has been such a big help on this journey. Everyone who fought, advocated, and refused to let Leo's Law get pushed aside. Thank you from the bottom of me and the Leo's Law crew's hearts. We could not have reached this milestone without you. We can't bring my mom or Leo back, but because of what we all achieved together on May 29th, we are going to save so many lives. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm Caden Hill.
I mean, right? You guys, told you. Thank you so much, Caden, for sharing your story and being a very memorable part of that piece of legislation, because I agree with you, my friend. Next, we're going to talk about marijuana. Dr. Marion McNabb, come on down.
Thank you all, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Dr. Marion McNabb, and I'm a public health doctor by training and the president of the Cannabis Center of Excellence. I'm here to talk about medical marijuana and the role that it can play from both a patient perspective and a business perspective. So earlier this year, I teamed up with several colleagues in Oklahoma, and we launched 2 different research studies. I'm pleased to be able to share the research findings now, and they've been emailed out with the legislature today, and we've also handed them out in person. I'm excited to share that some of the major findings are that medical marijuana patients are reporting improving. They're using medical marijuana to improve anxiety, followed by depression, followed by chronic pain, followed by arthritis, PTSD, and insomnia. And in fact, not only are patients reporting relief using medical marijuana, 60% of the patients reported using cannabis to reduce some type of prescription medication, whether that be antidepressants, anti-anxieties, opioids, and also around 49% reported reducing alcohol use, 34% tobacco use. So there's a real strong harm reduction possibility here. We also surveyed businesses and workers, and they reported a lot of frustrations here in the industry. And those recommendations and frustrations, we put together a solid report, 139 pages, and we have 17 key findings that we've come up with. So we've reported the research study findings, both from the patient perspective and the business perspective, but we've also put together productive recommendations that the legislature can consider based on the challenges that we encountered. So happy to be a resource here. Would love to serve any of the authors on the report or myself if there's any questions or any desires to produce an interim study or anything. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. McNabb. We're lucky to have her back in state. She just returned from Maryland, so I'm very excited that she's going to help us clean up some mess. Next, we have Sarah Smith.
Take notes and make it a little bit short, but so I'm here today for our vulnerable people that have a mental health diagnosis. And I also do it for a living as I am the CIT liaison for NAMI, Oklahoma. So I'm going to start with a joke. Our civil commitment statutes are gravely disabled. They are ancient. We need to update those. Right now, our vulnerable people are not meeting criteria because they are not an imminent danger to themselves or others, and that is causing them to not be receiving care, which is creating problems like making it to the criminal justice system. We also need to be looking at updating our discharge stabilization. I would like, it'd be nice to have restored to functionality part of the discharge. Also, responsible healthcare plans at discharge would be very, very thankful for. Also, to mandate medical to have trainings regarding civil commitment statutes, POAs, and guardianship. HIPAA is also too widely misunderstood by a lot of our medical professionals and other professionals in the field of mental health. So if there was like a HIPAA guide, that would be very very helpful. Also, there was a couple times that we had conversations talking about different data that everybody felt like would be violating HIPAA. And you can actually avoid that and get the data by starting a data collection law for discharge. This can be done by de-identifying the data before submitting the reports. For example, I wanted to see if we could follow the data of how many people commit or die by suicide within 48 hours of discharge. Then also, I would like to see something about protecting legal guardians by having mandated list of questions for medical to ask before initiating an APS investigation. Because that does happen. It actually recently happened to me, and it was by a PA that I never even saw. And nobody even asked me what I did for a living or anything. I think that they looked at me as the younger sister and kind of wrote me off. So, thank you.
I was writing as fast as I could, Sarah, so I feel like we'll probably have a follow-up conversation coming up. I don't think I captured it all. And our final speaker that's on the list, unless anybody else wants to speak, Maureen Hunt.
People from the criminal justice affected community are going to come out and they're going to talk. I was down at the Pardon and Parole Board meeting this morning, and their general counsel had to announce that House or Senate Bill 1330 did not make it through. Last year, Republican Danny Williams, I just want to say that I'm from Bixby. I live in House District 24, Chris Banning, and Senate District 25, Brian Guthrie. Those are my representatives. So last year, Danny Williams introduced House Bill 1968, which would have made the Pardon and Parole Board full-time. It died. That was 2025. This year, Republican Darcy Jeck introduced Senate Bill 1330. It passed the Senate 41-0, and it passed the House committee April 15th, but it never received a House floor vote before adjournment. Every state that borders Oklahoma, with the exception of New Mexico, has a full-time pardon and parole board. I wish Vicki Bahana hadn't left. I see those DA protest letters every month. I see them. They're hundreds of pages from almost every DA. Oklahoma County does not clog up the Pardon and Parole Board with their DA protests. Tulsa County does. I just want to say that it is humanly impossible for those 5 members of the board to read everything that comes into them. There are 500 people on the docket this month. There's going to be 600 people on the docket next month. That's so many letters of support, so many protest letters, so many things. They're making life-altering public safety decisions with the part-time board members who are underpaid for the amount of review these cases require, and a lot of review. A better compensated board, or even a full-time board, would likely pay for itself through better review, fewer delays, and more appropriate release decisions. They're asking to compensate the board from $22,000 a year to, I think it was like $44,000. And so they work like 20 to 30 hours a month and then do the meetings once a month. So Senate Bill 1330 and House Bill 3351 would have increased board compensation, but they did not get across the finish line last year, this year. So my question is, are Senate and House Democrats actively supporting these bills? And if so, why are they not getting traction? Is the barrier money, politics, public fear, or lack of leadership from the majority? And what can citizens do to help move this from a criminal justice issue to just a good government issue? So thank you. Thank you for holding these, and thank you for listening.
Might be dangerous for us to respond to that question, but I think we have time. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. First and foremost, would any of you like to respond to the final question from our last speaker?
Okay, you asked what it was. It's a lot of things, but I think it is to start with lack of leadership from the majority party. When the House and Senate Republican leadership can't get along, and when on the Senate side, their own members in caucus can't get along, things don't get done. And I think, I don't know of anybody, I mean, it passed the Senate. I suspect it got held up at the end because the House and Senate leadership on the other side of the aisle were fighting each other. And a lot of things died because they were fighting each other. Just how I see it, not stepping on anybody's toes. If they get their act together, we'd get a lot more stuff done.
I think there's also a prevailing attitude of, limited government. And so there's this understanding that if you have a part-time pardon and parole board, it looks a whole lot better because it's efficiency. And so, I mean, we fight that a lot in the legislation that we're trying to run, which is to really kind of reset or reframe the mindset around what an investment looks like, a meaningful investment to really change the trajectory, right? And so if you're talking about taking someone from a part-time capacity into a full-time capacity, the way they will frame it is like, this is 100% increase. And you're like, it absolutely is. And here's how it's going to save us money in the long term. So what I would just, I guess my unofficial guidance would be to continue to keep the pressure on, hold those in leadership accountable. I appreciate you coming and sharing your remarks and your comments tonight so that we can be allies in this conversation. I remember voting for those bills. I was like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so, I mean, whether it's getting an interim study, proposed, our deadline in the Senate is June 26th. So that's coming up. House, June 26th. So, getting someone to ask for time to consider what it would take for the majority party to be able to hear that as a meaningful request, I think that's worthwhile to do for sure. Okay, perfect. Okay, my friends, thank you so much for spending your time with us this evening. We really appreciate you being here. We will have more convenings coming up. They're not scheduled yet. So when they are scheduled, we will push them out through our various social media channels. You can see those on the board. Follow us, share the content if you have found tonight to be meaningful. And we appreciate your engagement always on trying to create a better future for all Oklahomans. Thank you so much.